So it was 1974, and my husband and I, Ballavhi and I, went to the Chicago Rath Yatra where Prabhupada was presiding. And he, in his lecture, explained to the audience why Lord Jagannath came to the United States. And he said, actually, Lord Jagannath has come to your country because Jesus Christ was a great devotee of Lord Jagannath. And he further explained that actually it does not matter which names of God that you chant. You can chant the names of Christ or you can chant the names of Krishna. The important thing is to chant the names of God. And so that was his way of letting everyone in the audience know that chanting the holy names of God is for everyone, regardless of what your denomination is. It's 1971, the year I was initiated, and my husband and I went to Boston from Atlanta for my initiation, and Prabhupada was there. And before the initiation, he had a class with all the devotees present, and he asked, what are the 10 offenses? So Jadharani raised her hand, and she said, well, Prabhupada, the first offense is to not blaspheme the pure devotee of the Lord. And Prabhupada checked her and said, no. He said, any devotee who is sincerely chanting the holy names and trying to spread the holy names, he said, they should not be criticized in any way. So then there, in relation to this, Prabhupada said, when one devotee asked, well, Prabhupada, how can we repay you? And Prabhupada said, actually, the disciple cannot repay the spiritual master. He said, but if you want to try to repay the spiritual master, he said, you can do that by preaching. And then he explained how there's 4 ways of preaching. One can preach by his life, one can preach by example, and one can preach with his words or with money. So my understanding was that any devotee who is sincerely preaching in whatever the capacity they're wanting to preach and spread Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, there should be no criticism. And actually the Vaishnava, he avoids any kind of criticism, but especially to criticize another Vaishnava is very much to be avoided. And so Prabhupada really wanted to illustrate that point, that we don't, not only do we not blaspheme the pure devotee, but any devotee who's sincerely trying to preach Lord Chaitanya's movement and spread the holy names should not be criticized. Well, it was 1973 or 74, and Ballavhi was running for mayor of Atlanta. And one of the letters from Prabhupada, he was very much appreciating his preaching. And he said, yes, this is what I want, and I'm so pleased with you because you are preaching as it is without compromising the philosophy. And he said, never mind that you don't get many votes. That does not matter. He said, when one tries to shoot the rhinoceros, if he does not shoot the rhinoceros, no one criticizes because they say, oh, who can shoot the rhinoceros anyways? But then if one does shoot the rhinoceros, then that is very nice also. So either way, it does not matter, just that you are trying your best for Krishna. That's what's important, and that's very pleasing to me. So I remember that one. Because sometimes I feel like, oh, you know, I'm not doing so much to help Prabhupada. But then when I think of that instruction, that just so long as I'm trying my best, that Prabhupada's pleased, and that's all that matters. And he appreciates it. You know, that's what counts. Maybe no one else appreciates, but Prabhupada appreciates. That's the important thing. I would say Prabhupada's instruction that more important than Vapu, the physical association, is Vani. And that, I believe, is what has kept me inspired in my devotional service for all these years. When I was a devotee of 1 month, I went to New Vrindavan for the Janmashtami festival. And it was at that time that there was the sannyasis there were giving some wrong information about the philosophy. And I remember everyone, including myself, I was very bewildered about the philosophy that they were speaking. And so I reflected on it and I thought, but that's not my understanding of what Prabhupada's saying in his books. I believe it was the Nectar of Devotion where Prabhupada was talking about how the spiritual master is to be honored as good as God. And I remember even asking the sannyasis during this discussion in the temple room, well, does that mean that all the spiritual masters in the disciplic succession are God? And there was not an answer for the question, and so I had to reflect within my own self, what did that mean to me, what Prabhupada said in the Nectar of Devotion? So I came to the conclusion that no, the spiritual master, the pure devotee, is to be honored as good as God, because in quality he's as good as God, but he's different from God, just like what Prabhupada said, you know, we're simultaneously one and yet different from Krishna. So the philosophy, Prabhupada's books, has always been my main inspiration. That and praying to Prabhupada for guidance, because sometimes there's so many different things that are said or done that can lead one to be confused. But Prabhupada has said, I'm always with you. I'm always with you in my teachings and in prayer. I'm always with you. So if we sometimes feel confused by different things that are said or done, we can always go to Prabhupada's books or pray to Prabhupada for clarity. And so that's been my inspiration. Je anilo premadana koruna prachu